Good morning. Well, you ever have one of those days where, you've been looking at something most of your life and thinking you understand it, and all of a sudden it takes on a different meaning? Yeah, I had one of those mornings. It was a simple thing of just watching the weather forecast. We have, fairly typical summer pattern going on here right now, where there is going from the west to the east across the top of the islands. We have a high pressure system moving, and beneath the islands, coming from east to west, we have a remnant low from a hurricane that broke down, and that's why it's raining here right now. This is not an unusual weather system for summer here. Summer is hurricane season, and hurricanes are pretty much always tracking from east to west here. And the high pressure systems that we get are quite often tracking from the west to the east, above the islands. The reason for that is because of the way the air flows on our planet. Above the chain of islands, the natural planetary global flow is from the west to the east. All you folks who live on the mainland U.S., you know that. That's your prevailing weather flow. Stuff's always moving that direction. Now, when you get a low pressure system moving from the west to the east, they rotate counterclockwise, and so as they come on you, it looks like the weather's coming from the east because of this type of rotation. And in a way it is, but the main system is still moving from west to east, west to east. Highs rotate clockwise, lows rotate counterclockwise. Well, so we have this natural planetary west to east system above the island chain. But beneath the island chain here, as we get down to Tropic of Cancer, 20 latitude, weather moves the opposite direction. That's just what it does. Everything moves from east to west at that latitude. Well, I was watching it this morning. It's probably because there's this remnant low from a hurricane down here, in the high above here. Kauai is at the top and Big Island's at the bottom. It was probably because it was so distinct. That low is only about 200 miles away below the island here. And it came to realize that, Hawaii is actually in a very unique location for weather and climate. Yeah, it's unique because we're out here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We have almost no factors that affect weather other than the elevation of the islands and the, ocean water as it's heating and cooling and forming systems. That's about it. Nothing else that gets involved much out here. So, when you naturally have this one chain of islands that happens to be sandwiched in between one global air mass moving this way every day of the year and one moving that way every day of the year, and we're sitting right between the two of them. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I do know that it's rather unique. You won't find too many other island chains that have that situation. At least not as small as the Hawaiian Islands. We're sitting smack dab between the two. It's like between two blocks of sandpaper. So that is novel. I look at it every day in the weather, and it just suddenly this morning I went, oh, duh, we might be one of the few places on planet Earth that actually exist in a zone like that. I wonder what that means for weather. So far, it's been good news for the most part. Yeah, well, moving right along. Well, I had put up a video there the other day about how, oh my goodness, I just suddenly realized what it costs to fill the gas tank in my car, because I don't do it very often. Yeah. So I get some feedback from people then every time I talk about EVs. That one kind of stirs things up. I don't think we've quite gotten there yet. Maybe not. I'm not going to pretend I know about things that happen out there very much, but we have to soon be heading for a fossil fuel war. We're already seeing the beginning of it. You got Joe Manchin over there in Congress, the Democrat who won't line up with the Democrats because he's in West Virginia and they got coal, oil, and so on. So it has started. I don't suppose trying to get friendly with the Saudis again, is some kind of global plot here, but this administration was rapidly trying to head the other direction, away from fossil fuels. And of course, then with the Russians and everything else that transpired, and inflation, we're back to worrying about the economy and gasoline again. So we're right back there. How much of this is actually artificially manipulated intentionally by somebody and how much isn't, I don't know. But there's absolutely no doubt in my mind, though, that coal companies, gas-producing companies, they're not going to take this transition to electric vehicles, for instance, laying down. Coal companies might, because I guess they'll say, oh yeah, we'll fuel the power plants how to charge them cars. So maybe they're happy about it. There's no way that the oil companies are going to be happy about this one. Many years back when George Bush said he was an environmentalist and they started turning all the corn in Iowa into ethanol, and putting it in the gasoline, and then eating the gaskets and the rubbers out of our carburetors in the old cars with that stuff, and pounding the valve seats to death. But that ethanol would distribute through the normal channels, that his family had always been in the oil business, and it'll come through the same trucks, through the same hoses, and so that really wasn't very challenging. It wasn't a great idea either. If anybody has any idea what it takes to grow a crop of corn, I do. Okay, y'all know how much I love corn. And so personally, if you were going to bother to take the energy and the time to take such an expensive crop as corn and turn it into alcohol, you darn near better make bourbon out of it. And I don't want to see anybody pour it in the gas tank, but we do it all the time now. I have to buy special gas if I want to put it in my lawnmower, because the stuff with the ethanol in it will, again, eat holes in my lawnmower. But we are on the verge, I believe, of an energy war. It will happen. And nothing in this country anymore, never say never, right? Very few things that start in this country anymore are actually grassroots. Even if they kind of look like it, they're not grassroots. Everything's got an agenda. There's always some corporation or some political hog or something behind almost anything that you see. Now, I would suppose most of the women and the people in the country today who are concerned about some of the latest Supreme Court decisions, I don't think the Supreme Court decisions were grassroots, but I can tell you that the people concerned about it, that's definitely in the streets. Yeah. Nobody made them go out there. Those folks are out there hollering because of the way they feel themselves. So that's a real one. But we're going to see energy wars, and there's going to be so much opposition to leaving fossil fuel behind. And much of it is going to look like it's grassroots. It'll be citizens groups and things, Yeah, that's the way business is done these days in this country. If it isn't a lobby group, in Congress directly affecting the laws, then otherwise most of the stuff you see in the street half the time is not what it looks like. Most of these organizations, if you dig down inside them, you'll find out that some moneyed interest group someplace or another set this up, and they set it up, and it tends to look like it's people in the street expressing the will of America. It ain't most of the time. And it's clear from past few years, those of you who've been paying attention, a lot of Americans will believe anything. Yeah. Especially if they read on Facebook. So my last video where I was talking about the price of gas, I already got a few of these comments back. I didn't get anything too outrageous, too scary, but I can smell on most comments the taint of oil companies. There is a campaign growing, say, against lithium as being the next environmental evil, which is what we got to use for batteries in the EV cars. As soon as I start talking about EVs, there'll be a bunch of somebodies that will suddenly pop up and go, well, China's got all the lithium, though, and we don't like them, and, or how do we dispose of these batteries, or lithium is mined, you have to extract it from the earth. On and on, things on that order. Well, my attitude towards it is nothing's perfect. The EV is a definite positive step away from the gas-powered automobile. And, there is actually, in my mind, there is no argument. There's no argument that says a gas-powered car is going to be a better deal all around. Its day is done. It's, one time we used to kill whales for oil to light our lamps. Currently, we're still using gasoline to run automobiles, but it's like whale oil. Its day is nearly done. Probably won't be as fast as I'd like it to come, but yeah, there's problems with everything. Now, America does have lithium. There is a deposit in Nevada. And chances are, Mr. Environmentalist, Joe Biden and some of his friends are going to have to start to, be a little more lenient on lithium mining operations due to the circumstances. As far as what do you do with the used batteries, we haven't burned many of them out yet, luckily, except a few that set fire. So it's not currently a problem, but you can recycle anything if you put your mind to it. But that's another story, isn't it, on recycling right now. But laws can be made, ways of dealing with it can be put up. It's all a matter of, how intent are we? I personally think that as the batteries are being made, that the batteries should be made in such a way that they can be easily recycled again. It should be part of the law. That there should be an already pre-existing waste stream system for dealing with it, just like a beer can, from the beginning to the end. The only reason right now that General Motors is so hot to trot about electric cars is because of the Chinese. The Chinese are driving the market entirely. I suspect their main motivation is they can't breathe their air at times. And so it makes perfect sense for them. But it's General Motors and Tesla right now are building these cars mostly for a Chinese market. If you ask yourself, why did the first, television commercial for EVs at GM, why did it come out as a Cadillac, right? There won't be any more gas Cadillacs real soon, Why? Because large four-door American luxury sedans are big business in China. Yeah. So this wasn't about American environmentalism. It had nothing to do with our politics. You know, there had been some attempts on the left to try to support these ideas, but they've pretty much got steamrolled by the fossil fuel lobbies at this point and the politicians they support. I don't think we're going to see anything too dramatic happen soon. If we're real lucky, we'll start to see enough chargers showing up. But yeah, the main reason y'all want to drive an EV is $6 a gallon for gasoline and the unreliability of the price of the fuel you're putting in the car. It's the main reason. I can think of a lot of other great reasons, but that one right there, right now, that's the main reason I smile. I feel so darn smart that I hooked this car up to the sun at the roof instead of relying on the gas pump over here under the present world condition. Yeah, we'll figure out how to recycle the stuff if we want to. Although, going from that, I don't know what to think about recycling. You know, this was a real big deal at one time in the United States. Oh, all kind of environmentalists up in arm, and they divided the waste streams up, and we had different containers to hold this, that, and the other thing, you know. And then one day I noticed that in the Bay Area, they were having us throw all the stuff back in one bin again. And well, I started to wonder about that one, so I started to look into it, and I said, well, why are we doing this, and what are they doing with it? And that's when I discovered that most of our waste at that time, the recyclable waste, were going to China. You know, some of the high-tech type waste end up in India and a few places like that. But the plastic recycling, for instance, you know, steel can recycling, it was all ending up in China. We're bailing it up, putting it on barges and sending it over there. And well, apparently there were some issues with the Chinese and the stuff being too mixed up, and they didn't want it that way. It had to be, you know, clean, orderly. Well, then, of course, Donald with the orange hair starts belly aching about their relations with China and trade policies and all that. And so one of the first things the Chinese said to him was, keep your trash, we don't want it anymore. And so here we are. Yeah, most of it. If it's not being handled by some small local recycler someplace in a little waste stream, the vast majority of all the trash in the United States is going back into a hole again, just like it did in 1955 and being buried. We have turned around completely, and most people are not aware of it. I don't even know if the Congress knows this happened. I suppose I should write my representatives and ask them, hey, do you have any idea that we reverted to the 1950s in handling waste material? You know, so you know, I guess you could put down all the laws you want to and rules and set up structures, and all it takes really is you know, one yo-yo that blew the whole thing overnight, just like that. Of course, we never should have been relying on China to deal with our trash. You know, come on, be responsible. I don't know, it makes me angry. I don't have much trash here. Half the time when my garbage cans get filled up, it's because Ellen found some plant in the field that she hates and she doesn't want it to resprout again in the rain, and so she'll stuff my garbage cans full of some kind of noxious plant like Miley Pilau or stainless steel plant, Coster's Curse. I keep telling her, Ellen, we can kill this stuff here in situ. Don't worry about it. Don't fill the trash cans. But no, that was 75% of the trash I hauled to the dump yesterday was plants that Ellen was worried about. Right, Gracie? Huh? Who's Ellen worried about those plants? Oh, you're kind of wet, huh? You're a little bit wet, girl. Some of the stuff that ends up in my garbage really shouldn't be going to the garbage anyway. You know, I used to separate the cans and the glass bottles, and I'd send them off separately so they could recycle the stuff, but I don't do that anymore. It's only the deposit type bottles anymore that are getting that treatment. But yeah, so we have very little trash here compared, I think, to a lot of people. Because even the waste paper, and no one's got a newspaper subscription, she likes to read it, hard copy, and even that stuff, it all goes as mulch under my plants. And so any kind of organic matter, that can be broken down like that. We bring home post-consumer cardboard cartons to use to rack the plants up in the nursery. And I also use those then to spread out as mulch over weeds in the garden. So any pieces of cardboard, any pieces of paper, all of that goes out. All of the kitchen scrap. There is nothing generated in the kitchen that doesn't somehow end up out here in the soil again. Pretty much everything. It's just, we try to limit plastics. Of course, they have a lot of laws here in Hawaii about plastics, but still, man, you can't get away from it. They're sieving it out of the sand on the beaches over here. It's in the fish. It's all over the place. So I've had to take a little different attitude about plastics too. Being very cautious about where I really think I need to have them or use them. And as far as using them as containers for, disposable stuff, that's bogus. Yeah. I know it was real easy and simple for industry, but man, it's creating a heck of a mess. So we've begun to stop purchasing products that are packaged that way. If I can't compost it and somehow turn it back in the earth, since there are no recycling programs anymore, I just leave it on the shelf. I don't know. It's possible a lot of the manufacturers putting the stuff in plastic don't realize there aren't any recycling programs. I don't know. How much awareness, because I know, having brought this up in the past several times, it's like, what? What? We don't recycle? No, we don't recycle. We do aluminum. Yeah, we do a few things, but what they actually do with all those glass bottles that were deposited, I don't know. Now, I get my deposit back on them if I take them to a recycling center. What happens to them? Oh boy, I don't know. That's the issue, see. This stuff goes to the curb, or we take it to the dump or the recycling center. After that, who knows? Actually, they're pushing all the aluminum cans into a volcano, and one of these days Pele is going to get angry with all the beer. I don't know. I don't know what they do with it. 2 words: sustainability, dependency. That's I think it's quite a bit of our problem today. We have become very dependent on the systems, and the systems are not necessarily sustainable. And because the only thing the systems seem to be sustainable at is making profits, when they're making money, you are going to try to stop them. So best way to achieve sustainability is to do it by the individual. I frequently hear they are charging too much. They make the laws. They said this. They, I think it would benefit many of us if we took the word they out of our language completely. Just completely removed it, replaced it with me, because in most cases, they is actually me. Yeah, it's the way I'm seeing it, the way I'm feeling about it, my reaction to it, how I'm dealing with it, and so on. That's maybe someone out there said something, did something that stimulated me to begin to engage, but it was me who engaged, and I was the one who decided how to react and what to do. And so, generally speaking, well more than 50% of everything that happens because of those guys is actually because of you guys. Yeah, and so, again, I hear it a lot in the comments. It jumps out at me when I'm reading these things. I'm going, oh, this person's just thinking that somebody else is in charge here. It's a very Republican type concept, but grabbing your own bootstraps is definitely part of my life motto. You pick your own self up. Some of us find it harder than others to do this for one reason or another. Sometimes it's skin color, sometimes it's our sex, you know. There could be a lot of reasons, but in all cases, unless they take you and stick you in a box and throw away the key, most of what holds us back is ourselves. Depending on how far we've been held back is going to depend on what kind of a step we might take. Everything starts in baby steps. You know, to build a solid existence on this planet, it's built organically. Even if you do win the lottery and you're going to have more money you know what to do with, well, half those people end up addicted to drugs or commit suicide or get ripped off, or, you know, take a look at the lottery winners. It doesn't always work out. The organic development into life, where we become wiser over time, we understand things more, we know how to engage actions so that, you know, it benefits us, and to realize it's actually our apple. At least in the United States, it is. That if life's an apple, it's up to you to take the bite, you know. And so whenever you hear they, those people, that group, those politicians, the liberals, the conservatives, whenever you hear they, you know, turn it around mostly to me. You know, even the Supreme Court decisions that have really upset a lot of people at the moment. There's a lot of screaming out there over it, going both ways. I didn't want to get involved in what I think about the decisions. I'm right along with a whole lot of Americans. I think it's pretty pukey. But the fact is, yeah, they were the justices, but we elected the people that decided to appoint them. We elected the people. And so at the basis of how this happened, it's your fault. Yeah, it's your fault. Yeah, I'll make a political station out of this thing here, but definitely this is a good time to consider voting. Yeah, I'd consider voting if I were you. Yeah. Yeah, it's also a good time to vote with your dollars, like they say. Some things have just become, they have just been jacked up so exorbitantly that, well, you know, I don't need much, so I don't have to engage this whole thing to too much of an extent. But if I did need much, I would surely not put my money down where they seem like they're excessively gouging. Yeah, if they look greedy, keep my money in my breast pocket. Yeah, it's a good time to vote with dollars. Yeah, where you can, if you can. You know, if the prices look like they're too high, let them know. Yeah, as you walk out the door, tell them, you're charging too much for the stuff. I ain't gonna buy it from you anymore. I'm gonna tell all my friends, you charge too much for stuff too, by the way. Most businesses are heavily impacted by public opinions. I know, I've run business before. You know, the nursery that I ran, we would pretty much refund anything, no matter what the circumstances were. Yeah. Kill your rose bush by planting it upside down with the roots in the air and the leaves in the ground. I'll give you a brand new one. Now I'm going to explain to you that rose bushes get planted this way, not that way. Yeah, I will. So hopefully it doesn't happen again. But, well, we just knew that, you know, giving back a $50 rose bush was easily going to save us thousands of dollars in trying to recover, you know, lost faith from consumers. Bad business, in other words, bad mouth. We used to say that you can fix a $5 problem in the shop, but you can't fix the same $5 problem with $5,000 after it leaves the shop. Bad word of mouth will kill you. I have noticed that some of the really large corporate type businesses and entities that we do business with, some of those have definitely jacked up prices, and they've done it big time too. A lot of them. On the other hand, a lot of our smaller local businesses here, fishermen, you know, people selling produce and stuff, I haven't seen things soaring as high. And so a lot of local brands here may have inflated a little bit since the beginning of COVID, but they haven't done the same, you know, that some of the multinational type stuff has. So I guess it's also a real good time to look around, shop local, and, you know, if you happen to be shopping local, maybe you could even talk to the guy that caught that fish. Yeah, some value to this. Anyway, folks, y'all hang loose. Aloha.